So welcome to Unit 1, Module 4, Lesson 2. We're looking at specific effects other than delay in the SetEffects command in EarSketch. So first I wanted to point out there's a link in Blackboard. When you click on this link, it's every effect explained in detail. It will take you to the detailed explanation of all the effects that I'm going to look at today. So when you click on it, in EarSketch, you will get this effect list right here, where it shows you a description, gives you a sound, and it talks about the parameters. We're going to talk more about these, and you'll kind of get the gist of what I mean by these parameters in a couple minutes. But this is where you find all the information. You navigate it down here by just clicking on these arrows left and right, and you can go through all the different types of effects that we're going to look at. And of course, remember delay from the other day. So let's dive in. The first effect that we're going to look at is what's called the Bandpass Filter. Make this so you can read it. It lets an adjustable size band of frequencies, and all other frequencies are suppressed. So what that means is you're going to have a low frequency. Let's say you want to get all the bass frequencies. You can choose that as your center frequency, your low bass frequencies. And then you can choose a size of the frequencies that you're going to let through. How much of that range around the low are you going to let through? And then it will only play that part of the frequency. So let's take a look at the parameters. Here is our sound reference. And here's what it sounds like with the bandpass. So you can definitely tell that we have pulled out several of the frequencies in that song. So here's the parameters. The center frequency, like I said, is where you pick the center sound that you're going to highlight. And then the width of that is the frequencies to let through. So you need both of these commands to make this effect work. You need to set the frequency, and the values can go from 20 to 2000. The default value is 800. I'm assuming that's somewhere middle-ish. And you have to set the width, and that can go anywhere from 0 to 1. So I like to think of it as a percentage of the whole band. So 50% of the band would be half the band around that center. 100% would be everything, but everything is still kind of shifted towards that center. If you use something like really small, like 0.001, then you're going to get something that's very narrow on a particular frequency. We also have mix and bypass. They do the same thing that they did in delay. Mix will mix this effect with your original sound, and you can choose the volume at which you hear it. It goes from 0 to 1. Again, we're going to use a fraction there, like a percentage. So this is kind of nice. You maybe want to highlight a particular frequency in there. Maybe you want to increase the bass. There are other ways of doing this, but maybe you want to increase the bass or increase a very particular frequency, or pull out a frequency. Maybe there's some kind of sound in the background that you want to take out, like a distortion sound or something. And then bypass turns it on and off. We're going to see these two, mix and bypass, over and over in all these different parameters, these different effects, so we're not going to continuously talk about these two. Just refer back to this to talk about mix and bypass. The next one is chorus. So this is when you probably had this effect when you maybe played with a keyboard and you have a whole bunch of voices singing together. You may have imagined just like a regular chorus, a group of people singing together. That's what this does. If you make some of the values too extreme, it can kind of sound like a robot. So here's our parameters. We can choose the length, we can choose the number of voices, and we can choose the rate, and of course mix. But then we also have chorus mod, which changes the pitch of the wobble. In other words, how much pitch in the cycling will be used. Low settings, a more natural sound. High settings is how you get that robot sound. We have our minimum and maximum values, and then they give you examples over here. So the effect we're going to use is chorus. We're going to apply it to track 1, and we're going to affect the chorus length. And then here we're going to affect the number of voices. Again, a max of 8. Again, you need more than one of these effects commands in order to make the effect actually work. Otherwise, it just kind of goes to the default value, and that's not always the sound that you want. So let's play that and hear what it sounds like. Here's our reference. Here's our chorus. Do that again. Reference. Chorus. The next one is the compressor. This is kind of cool because I like to think of it inverts the music. It takes the volume of the loudest sounds of the effect and reduces it. And it takes the volume of the quietest sounds and makes them louder. So this would be kind of cool if you wanted to do like a karaoke thing where you took out the voices and amplified the music. The settings for this, you have the compressor threshold, in other words, the volume, level, and decibels above which the compressor starts to reduce the volume. In most songs, the vocals are the loudest thing. So you play with this level until you get the vocals pulled out. And then you have this ratio, the amount of gain reduction. So a ratio of 3 to 1 means that, or 3, means that if the original sound is 3 decibels, then over the threshold, then the effect of sound will be 1 decibel over the threshold. Okay. We have our minimum values of 1, our maximum value of 100. Here's what it sounds like. Original. Compressor. I think it's hard to hear on this example, so you might want to play with some other sounds. The guitar is not a great example for this. And of course, we have bypass. Notice we don't have mix. Distortion. This gives that really cool guitar sound to sometimes. So it's technically called overdriving when you push the volume a little bit louder than it needs to go. Sometimes you may hear that in a microphone recording that somebody's doing, that it's really pushing the sound louder than it needs to be, and that's called overdriving. In music, it has this really cool effect, so let's listen to it. Original. And distorted. There you go. So it kind of does this dirty rock and roll type of sound. We only got one parameter here that we can really affect. We have mix and bypass, of course, but the one we're really looking at is the gain, the amount of overdrive of the original song. So we can go from 0 to 50, and you kind of choose a level that you like. The 3-band graphic equalizer. So this is like on your car or on your stereo at home. You can increase the bass or make the highs louder. So you can pick and choose what frequencies of sound that you want to let through and enhance. We actually have 2 parameters for each of the 3 bands. This is kind of interesting because we can apply multiples of these to affect multiple low frequencies. So the first parameter allows us to choose the gain of the low range frequencies. In other words, negative values lower the volume while positive values boost them. So if we want to increase the volume to max, we make it 18. But the second parameter here allows us to choose what is the actual frequency of the lows. And we can go from 20 to 2000. So we can really choose anywhere along there, where is the low. We can also choose we can do this multiple times. So we might want to do a low for 700 at one gain and then do a low at 800 for another gain. So you can really kind of have a multi-channel graphic equalizer. Rather than just 3 bands, you actually have access to many, many, many more bands of equalizers that you can use in here. And of course we have the same thing for mid and the same thing for high. And then you have your mix and your bypass. Let's hear what that sounds like. Here's the reference sound. And here's our EQ. preference. EQ. Okay. Filter. So this is a standard low-pass filter with resonance. That's what they're calling it. I think it's best to understand what it means by playing it. Listen to that again, and you can hear it kind of rolls in and out. So we can choose the frequency, the cutoff, which means all the frequencies that are higher than this value are rolled off, become lower and lower in volume, the higher they are from this value. So further the way they are away from that value, the lower the frequency becomes. And then we have this frequency resonance. The amount of amplification of a narrow band of frequencies around the current filtered frequency level. This causes the frequencies around the filter level to sound like a more resonant. In other words, it creates a vibrating, ringing sound into the song. Higher resonance will make the filter sound sharper around that particular frequency. Mix and bypass, of course, are the other two. Again, you need multiple commands to make this effect really happen. Notice this one's a little bit different. It requires several other parameters, the resonance. So we got to put in a 0, a 1, and a 0.9 and a 0.3. So we can put in different parameters here for this one. Whereas this is just a single min-max value. The flanger. So this is like putting a chorus effect and a slightly distorted effect because you're affecting pitch and time, and you're mixing it, and it mixes it back into the original sound. So it kind of does several of the other effects together, and is a very common effect in the music industry. If you use it too much, it can kind of get to sound robot-like, just like we had the same effect with the chorus. We can choose its length, we can choose the feedback. The effect of the sound is the feedback into higher values, creating a more artificial sound. And then we have the rate at which it occurs, and of course we have mix and bypass. So a lot of these things are, you kind of choose what sounds good. You decide what you like. I just kind of put a bunch of them together. You kind of got the idea of how to look at the parameters, but here's volume. So you can see it clearly increases the volume. Here's pan. I don't know if this will come through in the recording, but pan goes from the left channel to the right channel. So if you're wearing headphones, the sound comes in and out from left to right. So let's see if it works for you. So I'm hearing it out of my left speaker. And then it goes over to the right speaker. Okay. The phaser is creates a copy of the original sound over specific frequencies. What's interesting about this is sometimes this creates copies of frequencies that are reversed of each other that may temporarily cancel each other out by going in and out of phase. Pitch shift. You may have played with those sound changers when you were a kid, where it affects the sound of your voice and kind of increases it, makes it really high, or changes it, makes it really, really low. This is really interesting to use, especially if you're doing like a synthesizer type of sound. So if you record a sound like yo, then you can affect the pitch and go yo, 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 and end up getting a full control of the synthesizer. So different frequencies would give you different notes. Reverb. That might be distorting a little bit on your end, but it's a sound like you would get playing in a much richer context, like a big concert hall or something like that. Ring mod is interesting. It takes a sound and applies a sine wave to it. So it takes at certain points it takes the sound and makes it louder, and at other points it makes it lower. And this multiplication sounds different at every frequency for every song. So you really kind of have to play with this. This one is like a vibrato when somebody sings and they kind of shake their voice. And this last one, for our guitar fans, will know this is called a wah-wah. This is your wah-wah pedal on your guitar. Sometimes called the whammy bar. So those are all the different effects that we can look at. Here's what your assignment is. You are to create at least 3 effects other than delay and build a 3-track 15-measure song that uses these effects. The effects should each be highlighted somewhere in the song. So maybe measures 1 through 5 are one effect, measures 5 through 10 are another effect, and measures 10 through 15 are the last effect. So 5 measures for each effect. You could also do multiple tracks and choose different sound effects. So that way it makes it a little bit easier to hear it. I need to be able to hear the effects. I need to be able to hear that a difference has been made. So, and feel free to make it extreme. This is really just kind of highlighting the different effects. You want to upload the .py file. You want to upload the MP3 file so I can actually hear it. And you also want to paste your code into the written submit box. So if you need to remember the different effects, you can click on here and listen to them and hear all the different effects and see exactly how to use the parameters along with examples. Good luck and never stop coding.